Addison and Isaac met at work. The office romance developed quickly, and after 6 months, their relationship, which was more than just secret, they decided to get married. Isaac gave Addison a ring during a New Year's celebration at the company, and she said yes in front of her envious colleagues. Addison was a manager and earned quite well, so she paid for half of the wedding. Isaac's family treated her as an equal. Only his mother asked the newlyweds not to rush with having grandchildren, as she believed that children should only be born 5 to 10 years after the wedding. Addison even suspected that her mother-in-law's skeptical attitude was due to her relatively young age. She gave birth to Isaac when she was 18 and made it clear that she wasn't ready to be a grandmother yet. But Addison and Isaac had their own views on this topic. They were young, in love, and wealthy enough to plan children. So it happened that Addison not only brought beautiful photos from her honeymoon, but also a test with 2 strips. And while Addison communicated the good news to her parents almost immediately, the young daughter-in-law did not know how to deliver the news to her mother-in-law, Eleanor. At dinner and the meeting, Eleanor, as she wanted to be called, openly explained that she was still young and her son got married early. The question of age was like a red cloth to a bull. Not too long ago, she had gotten married for the 2nd time and dreamed of having a child with her younger husband. Therefore, any mention of the word grandmother made her depressed and anxious. As a result, Addison Isaac consciously avoided saying to her mother that they would soon become parents. "I don't want her to react negatively. It should be a surprise," Isaac explained, though she didn't really understand why he wanted to keep it a secret. Her blissful family life with secret glances and smiles lasted a few months. But everything that is secret will be obvious sooner or later. The growing belly of the daughter-in-law and the sides that appear from somewhere are particularly striking. Pregnancy has not exactly affected the figure of Addison to gain weight. First, Eleanor noticed that Addison had gained weight. At a dinner together, she came to the subject of self-care and advised her daughter-in-law to change her diet a little. "I think you and Isaac, you should eat less in restaurants and eat less fast food." "Addison, do you even cook at home?" "Yes, I do." "And what did you eat at noon? Schnitzel, I hope?" Eleanor raised the eyebrows. "No, simple, fried chops." Addison pulled a grimace when mentioning them. What had been eaten a few hours ago was disgusting at that moment. "You have to lose weight. Eat more healthy and light food. Avoid fried and fatty food. Look at me, I look younger than you because I take care of myself." While her mother-in-law boasted about her weight gain, Addison fought with herself not to run to the bathroom. She apologized and left the table. That did not go unnoticed. Later, her mother-in-law grabbed her sleeve and said bluntly, "I will make an appointment with a nutritionist for you. Look at your complexion." "What is that?" Addison shrugged them off to the side without further ado. "You can't let yourself go at your age. You have to train your abs and buttocks. Isaac doesn't like sagging skin and no fat." "Do you think Isaac would tolerate a fat cow around him?" "No, he will look for a slim, pretty girl and you'll grow horns and eat your disappointment cake." "Isaac won't leave me," added Addison with a lump in her throat. "Just because divorce is not accepted in our family. But I know my son and men in general. If you don't meet beauty standards, he will leave. So choose between constant conflict or the constant interest of a husband." Addison was so surprised by this revelation that she didn't have an answer. She remained silent and walked away feeling dirty. On the one hand, she realized that the change in her figure was a common story that happened to most pregnant women. On the other hand, the conversation with her mother-in-law had left an unpleasant aftertaste. In addition, she began to carefully observe her husband's behavior in the office, because any hint of flirting with colleagues was a reason for her to start a scandal. Isaac could not understand why his previously calm woman became suspicious and changed dramatically in an instant. Addison no longer allowed Isaac to meet friends, checked his phone, and was fixated on her appearance. Every additional gram turned into hysteria. She almost stopped eating, no longer attended family reunions with her mother-in-law, and almost had a nervous breakdown. But instead of talking and discussing their fears and worries, Addison unleashed her anger on her husband and accused him of fraud and infidelity. It ended with a heated argument and separation. Addison believed that he had taken a lover. She remembered Eleanor's warning that she would be forever deceived and became disillusioned with life. She came to the conclusion that she could no longer trust and withdrew from interactions, sinking into depression. She never imagined that she could lose her child. It could have ended tragically if Addison's mother, Brooklyn, hadn't intervened. Despite living in another city, she sensed that something was wrong with her daughter. Her instincts guided her. While Addison was usually happy and talkative, constantly sending pictures of herself and her husband, she started behaving suspiciously. She stopped making phone calls and barely communicated at all. Brooklyn took a train ticket and went to her daughter's house. Addison did not answer, so Brooklyn called her son-in-law. "What's going on here? Why isn't my daughter responding?" she asked in a trembling voice. Isaac confessed to his mother-in-law that they had not been living together for 14 days. "Do you understand that she is expecting a child from you? How could you? I thought she had stopped loving me. It was impossible to live together. We'll discuss that later. Come over right away." Isaac didn't object. Luckily, he had rented an apartment nearby and quickly arrived at the address with the keys, so he didn't have to break down the door. When she saw her daughter, she was surprised by Addison's condition, incredibly thin and pale. "Daughter, how can that be?" whispered Addison. She did not answer. She could barely stand and practically collapsed onto her husband. Fortunately, the doctors did everything they could to help. Addison's body was young and strong, and despite the emotional and physical exhaustion, she managed to hold on. "Why didn't you sound the alarm when she didn't go to work?" scolded the son-in-law to the mother-in-law. "I thought she didn't want to talk. I called." Addison didn't take the phone off. The excuses didn't match too well, and she didn't stop until she was sure that Isaac had recognized his mistake. In addition, she practically forced Addison to explain the reason for her strange behavior. The answer astonished her. "You're a woman. You should love yourself and be proud that nature has equipped you with the ability to give birth to a child. It is a real miracle that many people dream of, having children and spending years in treatment to experience the joy of motherhood. Would you have almost killed yourself because of the additional kills? I was afraid that Isaac would no longer fall in love with me," Addison admitted and turned away. "That's why I did everything I could so that your marriage breaks when you listen to an age-conscious woman." Addison had nothing to reply to that. Brooklyn had a conversation with her son-in-law and explained to him that pregnant women have hormones and that he should support them as a responsible husband and never leave them alone. "I understand," he nodded. "I wanted to come here to reconcile myself, but I kept postponing it because of my pride. I am a fool." They decided that they had to work together and took care of them together. Addison, surrounded by the care of her relatives, realized that she was loved and recovered. After a short time, she was released home. Meanwhile, Eleanor noticed that her son had changed and no longer came, and suspected that something was wrong. She wanted to visit her son herself, but Brooklyn didn't let her in. "Let me through. You have no right. This is all your fault. If they hadn't been, my daughter would not be so exhausted. I didn't even know that she was pregnant." Eleanor tried to raise an objection, but Brooklyn was adamant. Then Eleanor complained to her son. She hoped he would understand it. Isaac could not refuse to see his mother, and Eleanor almost immediately attacked him with allegations. But instead of regretting that her son almost lost his wife and future child, she expressed her displeasure with another fact. "Why did you make them pregnant?" "What do you mean?" Isaac didn't understand it. "I told you that I was not yet ready to become a grandmother. Couldn't you have waited for me?" "How long?" 10 to 15 years. Isaac asked his mother with a serious look. "Will you be ready then?" "Of course, not so ready, but 5 years would be fine." "No, we couldn't. And if you don't understand why, I'm sorry. Isaac turned to go. Isaac, what kind of behavior towards your own mother? I gave birth to you early. You'll remember me if you want to go out. But it will be too late. Isaac did not answer. He remembered his father and thought if he was still alive, and his mother would not have run away after his death to marry a young man his age, this problem would not have existed. Against the background of the unequal marriage, Eleanor developed a complex. Fortunately, Addison was helped in time, and the mother-in-law could not spoil the life of her daughter-in-law and son. But still her position did her job. When the granddaughter was born, the happy parents held a big party. All relatives went out, only they were not invited. They didn't want Eleanor to feel like a grandmother.